There was a short period of time when I was home alone a lot more than usual. I was 19, fresh out of high school, and taking a gap year while working night shifts at a grocery store. My parents' schedules had changed around the same time, so there were nights when I'd get home and the house would already be empty. It wasn't a big house or anything, just a single-story place in a quiet neighborhood, but it felt different when I was the only one there, especially late at night. I usually tried to distract myself with TV or my phone until I got tired enough to sleep. That night, I remember getting home a little after midnight. The house was dark, just like I expected. I locked the front door behind me, tossed my keys on the counter, and went straight to the kitchen to grab something to eat. Everything felt normal at first. I microwaved some leftovers, leaned against the counter, and scrolled on my phone while waiting for the timer to go off. That's when I noticed something small that didn't really register as scary, just strange. The hallway light was on. I clearly remembered turning it off earlier that day before I left for work. My parents are the type who obsessively turn off lights, and they weren't supposed to be home until the next morning. I told myself I probably misremembered and didn't think much of it. I grabbed my food and went to my room, shutting the door behind me like I always did when I was home alone. I put on a video and ate, slowly starting to relax. About 20 minutes later, I heard a sound. It wasn't loud, more like a soft shuffle, coming from somewhere near the living room. I paused my video and listened. Nothing. I figured it was just the house settling. It was an older place and it made noise all the time. I unpaused my phone and tried to ignore it. Then it happened again. This time it sounded closer, like something brushing against the couch or coffee table. I felt that familiar tight feeling in my chest, the kind you get when your body reacts before your brain fully catches up. I muted my phone and sat completely still. The house was silent. No TV, no footsteps, nothing. After about a minute, I felt stupid for getting worked up over nothing. I stood up, cracked my door open, and looked down the hallway. The hallway light was still on. What caught my attention wasn't the light, though. It was the front door. It was slightly open, just barely. Not wide open, not swinging. Just enough that I could see a thin line of darkness where it shouldn't be. I stood there staring at it, trying to convince myself that maybe I hadn't closed it all the way when I came in. But I knew I had. I always did. Slowly, I walked down the hallway. Every step felt louder than it should have. When I reached the door, I could feel cold air coming in from outside. I pushed it shut and locked it. That's when I heard breathing. It wasn't mine. Came from behind me. I froze with my hands still on the lock, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The breathing was slow and steady, like someone trying very hard not to be noticed. I didn't turn around. I don't know why. I think I was scared that if I saw whoever was behind me, it would somehow make things worse. Instead, I spoke. I said, "Dad." The breathing stopped. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then I heard footsteps moving away, fast, toward the back of the house. I finally turned around and ran to my room, slamming the door shut and locking it. I grabbed my phone and called my dad immediately, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. He answered, groggy and confused. When I told him what happened, he stayed quiet for a moment and then told me to lock myself in my room and call the police. I did. The police arrived about 10 minutes later, but those 10 minutes felt like an hour. I sat on my bed, staring at the door, expecting the handle to move at any second. When the officers searched the house, they didn't find anyone. What they did find was the back door, unlocked. One of the officers told me it looked like someone had forced it earlier that night. There were muddy footprints leading from the back door into the living room, and stopping right outside my bedroom door. I stayed at a friend's house that night. My parents installed new locks and cameras the next day, but they never caught anyone on them. What scares me the most isn't that someone broke into my house. It's the thought that if I hadn't gone straight to my room when I got home, I might have walked right past them without even knowing. The second story happened a few years earlier when I was still in high school. My parents worked late most nights, and I'd usually be home alone for a few hours after school. It was routine enough that I didn't think twice about it anymore. This happened on a weekday. I got home around 4 p.m., dropped my backpack by the door, and went straight to my room. I remember locking the front door behind me, not out of fear, just habit. I spent the next hour doing homework with headphones on. At some point, I felt my phone vibrate. It was a text from my mom telling me they'd both be working late and wouldn't be home until after 9. I texted back, okay, and went back to what I was doing. A few minutes later, I heard what sounded like a door closing. I assumed it was just noise from outside, maybe a neighbor, but then I felt it again, a vibration through the floor, like someone walking. I took my headphones off and listened. The house was quiet. I stood up and opened my bedroom door. From where I stood, I could see straight into the kitchen. The pantry door was open. It hadn't been before. I stood there for a long moment, trying to convince myself that maybe I'd left it like that earlier and just didn't remember. Still, something felt wrong. I slowly walked into the kitchen and closed it. That's when I noticed the calendar on the fridge. The page had been flipped. It was set to the next month. I knew for a fact it hadn't been like that morning. My heart started to race. I pulled my phone out and called my mom, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried my dad next. No answer. That's when I heard a voice. It came from the hallway. It was quiet, almost careful. Someone said my name. Not shouted. Not whispered. Just said it. I didn't respond. I backed into the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife I could find. Holding it so tightly my hand hurt. The voice came again. Closer this time. It said my name the exact way my mom did when she wanted to get my attention from another room. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. My parents always called me by my nickname. That voice didn't. I ran. I locked myself in the bathroom, climbed into the tub, and stayed there until my parents got home. When they checked the house, nothing was missing. No signs of forced entry. But the window in the laundry room, the one that was usually painted shut, was unlocked. To this day, my parents think I imagined it. I don't. Because sometimes, when I'm alone and everything is quiet, I still hear my name being called, in that same careful voice. The last story is the one that still bothers me the most. This happened when I was living alone in my first apartment. It was a small place on the second floor, and the building itself was old. You could hear everything: pipes, footsteps, doors, so I was used to strange noises. That night, I fell asleep on the couch while watching TV. I woke up sometime after 2 a.m. to the sound of my phone vibrating. I had a missed call from an unknown number. I stared at the screen for a moment, confused, before dismissing it and checking the time. That's when I heard a knock. It came from inside the apartment. 3 slow knocks. I sat up instantly, my heart pounding. The knocking came again. Same rhythm. Same spot. From my bedroom door. I hadn't gone into my bedroom since getting home. I was still on the couch. I held my breath, listening. Then I heard something slide across the floor. Soft, deliberate, like fingers. I quietly stood up and backed toward the front door, not taking my eyes off the hallway. My phone vibrated again. Another call. Same unknown number. I didn't answer. Instead, I unlocked the front door and stepped into the hallway of the apartment building. The moment I did, the knocking stopped. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the stairs outside my apartment. In the morning, I went back inside with my landlord. There was nothing unusual. No damage. No signs of anyone else. But when I checked my phone later that day, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The missed calls were from my own number.